Hey friends, welcome to That's What I Thought, a podcast about faith, growth, and what God's teaching us through everyday life. I'm Annette Ridenour, your host, along with my husband, Micah Ridenour, and together we're raising a family, running a couple of businesses, and trying to walk faithfully through it all. We're sitting down with friends, family, entrepreneurs, thinkers, and fellow believers to talk about what they're learning and how God's moving in their story. So whether you're folding laundry, commuting, or taking a minute to breathe, grab a cup of something warm and settle in. I think you'll enjoy this one. Hey, I know we've been back and forth a bunch on this podcast over the last 4 years now, which is wild to think about. Trying new things, testing new formats, just having fun playing around here. So bear with us as we're jumping in again. Recently, I was convicted to start things back up again, and hearing Micah share his story today really reminded me why there's just so much power in sharing what God has done and celebrating that, and just having people be encouraged by hearing what other people have gone through or going through and are working on. So hope this is an encouragement to you. Are you sick and tired of feeling stuck in your body? Like nothing you do seems to work long term and you don't even know where to start. That's exactly why my husband Micah started Ridenour Fitness. He coaches everyday people, busy, tired, real-life people who want to feel strong again without the pressure of perfection. His approach is personal, practical, and totally doable. No hype, no extremes, just honest support and simple habits that actually fit your life. If you're ready to feel better in your own body and finally start building something that lasts, visit ridenourfitness.com to sign up for a free intro call. Okay, today I'm interviewing my favorite person, Micah. Hi, Micah.
Hello, that's me.
And so for those of you who don't know, Micah has been on a huge fitness journey, not just in the last year, but the last several years. And so I wanted to have a chance to interview him on what that journey's been like, what's worked for him, why this whole process. So maybe the best place to start is like, Micah, tell us a little bit about like where you are now as compared to where you have been, like just the big picture overview.
Yeah, right now I am super into fitness again for the second time in my life here in the last probably 6 years, where I am running marathons, ultra marathons, and I'm also a personal trainer now, and doing wellness coaching with that, which is very different from where I was even, I guess, like a year and a half ago now, where I was doing a job that I liked, but I just was miserable, and I was obese 2, not even 1, just 2, teetering on morbid, and just feeling gross and disgusting, and like riddled with anxiety, depression, all these things, and was just not fun to be around all the time. And decided that I want to change that, and learned to just through different things that I've experienced that I'm like, I really love working with people, and I really love learning specifically about health and wellness, as opposed to not really enjoying learning about anything else. And so all those things kind of came together and started to be like, man, I should just do some personal training and fitness coaching, because I love people and I love fitness, and I need a good reason to get back into it. And I'd been wanting to get back into it because I knew how much, because this is the second time I've lost significant weight. And the first time I lost it was about 6 years ago, and that was like life-changing in a lot of ways, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually even, and just all of it just felt really good, and I knew I was wanting to do that again, but sometimes it's just hard to find the right motivation, and it's hard to choose a hard that's worth chasing. And so it kind of gets to that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go all the way back and talk about and fill in the gaps. What's your origin story with fitness? Like, how did this start for you? Because you didn't grow up knowing or doing anything really with fitness besides like baseball and playing school sports, right? But like, and then you were really heavy in high school. So like, where did this kind of journey start for you?
In high school, definitely is really when it kind of started. My I was in sports a lot, and so like being strong is, especially I played football, and being strong is very valuable when you're playing football, especially as a bigger dude. And as a bigger dude, you're probably going to be a lineman, and being a lineman, you need to be strong. And so there's this big value in like our football world of being strong, and so like you'd have we had something called 0 hour, where football players would come in for an hour before school started, and you would do a workout. Like a full football team would all come and do different kinds of workouts, usually resistance training stuff. So that's kind of where it started. That plus my dad had gotten into resistance training a little bit, and my older brother was super into it for a long time, and he's like still like just super strong. I've never even been close to as strong as list as he's had. And so that's kind of where it started. Just was mainly like just getting strong, and I really valued being strong, especially because I was a lot stronger typically than a lot of my other friends, and just kind of like naturally had a strength to me compared to other people. A lot of that is contributed to the fact that I was also a lot bigger, and so the more weight you have on your body, the more muscle your body has to create in order to move that weight, and so big people tend to be stronger than light people who don't work out. Big people who don't work out versus light people who don't work out, just because of that. And so I really valued that. That was kind of my origin story, especially with like fitness outside of just sport. If that makes sense.
Yeah, just so like knowing as a kid and a teenager that there's sports and you can play football, and that's kind of ground zero, I think, for a lot of people. And what we know as kids is just like school sports. But
Yeah.
then seeing your dad and your brother kind of learning more of a specific training niche opened your eyes up to some different options.
Yeah. So I really valued strength, and because yeah, because that's what I was taught, and I was good at because I was taught it. I was taught it in school. I was taught it in like that 0 hour. So beforehand, I took weightlifting classes. I'd work out with my brother when he got off work after high, or when I got off school and he was off work. You'd come pick me up and we'd go to the gym together, and he'd teach me a lot of stuff. My dad was getting into it, so he was teaching me some things when I was in middle school, and so a lot of it was just weight training type stuff, just for the sake of getting stronger, not even necessarily like functional strength. And so that's kind of where it started. And then when it kind of got to the point where I was like, I want to like not be fat anymore, not be obese, was when I was like, I gotta like, I know I can do the fitness stuff or the strength stuff, but I know that it's not going to be enough for me to really see the results that I want, because I value being strong, but I knew that I needed to be doing more cardio as well, because it's hard to burn fat. I mean, like resistance training from a technical standpoint is like the most efficient way to lose body fat, on the fact that your muscles require a lot of energy to use, and so like your metabolic rate goes up. So you're burning more calories passively throughout the day because you have more muscle mass that needs more energy. Which is why like a lot of people will say that resistance training is the number one form of like fat loss, which is true.
Could you define like what
However,
is resistance training? Like what
resistance training
all falls
is
in that?
weightlifting essentially. So anything where you're pushing or pulling, or there's something that you're physically moving, is considered resistance training. So like basketball is not resistance training. Like rowing would actually be more of a resistance training type of sport. Like football would be a resistance training type sport, like because you're physically pushing somebody. So it's that idea of there's some type of force you're pushing against. So there's that resistance to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, I wasn't clear what fell all under there. So, would you say then, like, I mean, your mindset at the beginning as a teenager, like, you weren't thinking really about, like, long term overall health and wellness. You were just thinking, my brother does this and that looks cool, so I'll learn about it, and that's about it. But I'm still carrying a lot of weight and don't
Yeah, it
know.
came from, yeah, my mindset with it, especially with resistance, was like I just like being strong. Like that was pretty much it. There was no, like I didn't even really care about having big muscles because I couldn't really see them anyway because I was so big. And so, but I just like being strong. So I knew like if I'm going to be big, I may as well be strong. And so like all of my friends,
Mm.
like socially, they at least knew that I was strong. If I wasn't the fastest guy out there, I was going to be one of the strongest guys out there. So that's kind of where that came from. But it wasn't about like, I want to be strong in case of this happens or this situation or
Mm-hmm.
because I know that resistance training is the number one way of burning fat. Like that, it wasn't that. It was just I like being strong. I value being strong, and so I did resistance training, and that's what I
Yeah,
knew.
your motivator was pretty much just like social
Yeah,
status, like to be able to
social.
show your friends that you have that value or whatever.
Yeah, or I bring something to the table.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you said something earlier about obese too, and I don't think most people know what that means. Can you share like those different levels of,
Yeah.
because that's what you were
So
in high school, was obese too, also?
in high school, it's probably more obese one. But the way it's kind of broken out, it's based off your BMI, so your body mass index, which is it's a tool, not necessarily a rule, because it only uses two factors of your health, but it's a very well known way of gauging your physical health, and so it's based your height by your weight. So it calculates that with some fancy numbers, and it tells you where you're at in this range. It'll give you like a number, and so on the different, and then within each of those ranges, you have a different like title that you'd be considered. So like for somebody who's my height, I'm like 5'9", not super tall, and like right now I'm 193 ish, and so now I'm considered overweight. I'm in that category, but the categories are like underweight, so people who are like not healthy, and then there's
In the opposite direction.
yeah, the opposite direction, which is not good either. And then there's normal weight, which is kind of where you're supposed to be based off your height and weight. And then there's overweight, which is where I'm at. And then there's obese 1, obese 2, and then morbidly obese, which is pretty
Hmm.
much just like everything else.
Oh, okay.
And so does that make sense?
Yeah, so what are like the I guess like is there like a percentage over normal that is like obese one and then obese two?
Yeah, it's based off the score. It's been a second since I've looked at it. So like whatever it decides your percentages of body body weight to height ratio is, because like there's like an ideal one for every like inch of weight. Like it's based off your height mainly. Well, it goes off your height, and there's a healthy weight, and for people who are 5'9", doesn't even matter if you're a man or a woman. That's the other part that's kind of annoying about BMI.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a 5'9" person, then there's a correct weight or normal weight that range for you to be in, and then for every additional pound you are outside of that range, it'll put you in a different category.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense enough, and people would probably just need to look up what theirs would be.
Yeah, it's pretty
But
easy. I mean, you can literally just type in BMI calculator, and then it'll like pretty much any site will be towards the top would be
mhm.
pretty accurate. And it'll just have you punch in your weight. But then again, it's a helpful tool. It's more of like seeing if you're looking at a puzzle of what your health looks like, it's helpful for getting like a bunch of pieces together, a big cluster of it, but it's not going to give you the whole picture of it. And so, but it's really helpful. So like I would recommend looking at it, especially to do it and like try to really look at it without as unbiased as you can at yourself and say like, because that's where I saw like, obese 2. The 2 was like, it was significant to me that I wasn't just obese. I was obese.
Mhm.
And so like, that was really eye opening. I'm like, shoot, man, like this isn't, I don't want to be obese. I was hoping for overweight, and I got obese 2. And so I was like, shoot, I need to make some changes. But again, that doesn't take into account the fact that you're a man or a woman, because a woman's range would actually probably be even less as far as like a goal weight would actually probably be less, because they're going to have a lot. And then also doesn't take in effect like how much physical activity you have. So if you're lifting a ton, like there's a funny thing on a lot of like social media, you'll see these like super jacked dudes who make fun of BMI, rightfully so. But they're like, according to this, I'm obese, I'm morbidly obese, but really he's just has so much muscle on his body, and muscle weighs almost twice as much as body fat anyway. And so like, and then they're like, I'm considered obese, but you're not.
I'm just
You're just
jacked.
freaking jacked.
That's funny. Okay, I think this is really good because, I mean, we've had conversations about this, but something I wanted to talk about mostly with your fitness journey is like mindset stuff and motivation and kind of like understanding where you're coming from so you can make a difficult change. And I think like being able to examine where you were as a kid and in high school and like what your mindsets were, what your family's mindsets were, what you inherited from them, and like what you thought about and didn't think about is so important. So, like, when you look back on that stuff in your life, where would you say you were coming from with, like, you shared some about like sports were important to your family and getting strong was important, but you also have family members who are also obese. So, like, what was your guys' mindsets around food, or at least what you perceive them to be and what you inherited around like food and weight and all of those things that like kind of, I guess, set you on the foundation to allow yourself to be overweight as a teen, um, and then like having to address that later. But you know, like obviously you don't start overweight as a kid, so
Yeah, you're right. You don't. Yeah,
is that too
it's not
judgmental that you
inherent.
left?
That is something that happens. Yeah. To answer the question, especially talk about like food, because that's where a lot of, especially obesity and like childhood obesity comes around food, because you can't get obese if you're not eating at all. Like it's just not gonna happen. So you have to eat in order to become big. And so like growing up in my house, one of the things that I really appreciate about my parents, especially my mom, is like she grew up in a house where she was heavily scrutinized for the way she looked and her weight and her anything like visual about her. And so she, when she had us, she decided that, or she told herself, she was like, my kids will never feel scrutinized for the way that they look, which is very true. We never did. Never, not once for my mom or for my dad. Did I ever feel scrutinized? And like, I'd gotten pretty big by the time I left the house. And so, but in that, I think there is an issue where because we were never told to stop eating, that we never really learned good boundaries with food. Like pretty much all of us, because we really liked food, and my mom and dad liked making food, and they enjoyed food too. And so it was just kind of like all of us were kind of big for a while, except for one of my brothers. He was like super into sports and was a fast guy, so he was doing a lot of running. So he was always in good shape through high school. But a lot of our mindset around food was based off of flavor, because we really liked flavorful food. We had a lot of tacos, a lot of pizza, a lot of fajitas, a lot of this stuff, and it was all really flavorful and really good. And so we just keep eating. And again, like we didn't really grow up. I rarely heard my mom tell me to stop eating. And also, like, my grandparents are always like, you're a grown boy, you gotta eat. And so it was just always kind of greenlit to keep going. And so then, like, just didn't know. And, like, my parents didn't know a ton about health, and especially around food, because it's not really something that's taught a lot. It's like most people, generations ahead of us, like, it's just not talked about a lot, especially as the food quality itself went downhill so fast over the last 50 years. Then like all of a sudden, like it's crazy how much more sugar people consume in a year than they did 50 years ago. Where I think I
Wait,
saw a
you have
stat.
to, yeah, you have to share that.
Yeah, I saw a stat where like 50 years ago, the average per American consumed, oh shoot, I can't remember exactly what it is, a pound of sugar a day or a year. The average individual American consumed 1 pound of sugar a year, where nowadays the average American consumes 1 pound of sugar a week. which is just an insane level of increased sugar and glucose. And
Yeah,
so,
that's
like, all of a
wild.
sudden, like, whatever we're eating, it has sugar in it. Everything has sugar in it. It's so hard to find things that don't have sugar in it. Especially if you
Yeah.
look at nutritional labels, there's the amount of things that have, like, you'll see sugar, but then you'll see this little, like, sub mark that says added sugar.
Hmm.
And that stuff is just pure, I'm just going to pour the sugar in. And it's crazy how much stuff is in there.
Hmm. And all that stuff that you're like, this tastes so good, and you want more of it, is that stuff
Yeah.
that's got like 40 grams of added sugar.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it's delicious, but it's caused a huge problem
Hmm.
in the last 50 years, especially like diabetes levels have gone up
So
drastically.
much. Yeah.
I like to chalk up a lot of, like, I work with kids as well, and so like a lot of like childhood behavioral issues can also be stemmed from the amount of sugar kids are consuming,
Hmm.
and especially with how little they're actually moving now because they're sitting in school for 8 hours a day now.
Hmm.
And so, like, we as a society, we sit more and we eat more and we move less. And so, like, it's so
Hmm.
easy. It's so easy for us to get trapped in this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll share a little bit because as Mike has been learning these things and I've been examining some stuff too, and we've had some coaching around this, and we can get into that in a little bit. But I just wanted to share, like, around food growing. I agree. Like, we didn't really talk about food at all. I think all we really talked about. My dad is a really picky eater, so talking about food was we only eat what dad eats because we don't want to go through the extra work of having to buy different groceries and feed. There was 4 kids and 2 parents, so like it's a lot of work to be like, let's make custom meals for everyone based on their food preferences. So that was like, we eat this way because dad likes these things, and mom and dad are going to cook and do the dishes, and you just kind of you ate what was there and you were happy about it, and I don't remember really even complaining about it. Or like, if you wanted something special like Pop Tarts or something, like I was just talking with people about Pop Tarts were like this huge thing in high school for us for some reason. We all had boxes of them in our locker, and I don't know why. It was just like a trend. But like, if you wanted something special like that, like Pop Tarts, then like, you tell dad, and dad's managing the money, so like he's gonna decide if we get that or not, kind of thing. So it was just like all our eating was very controlled by our money, and it was very controlled by what dad liked. And so, and I agree, I don't think that they really had any education around food to think differently, because like my dad, his mom would have been a product of the depression, so like her feeding him was just like, what do you like? I'm going to find what's on sale, and no matter the quality, like, we're going to eat that, and it's going to be convenient because my grandma also worked, which was more rare for her time period. So like, yeah, it was just, I think it's interesting to think about like how your understanding of food has been affected by those generational things, and be able to say like, that was my reality, but I'm allowed to think differently about that now. Like I have different tools now. And so like, even thinking about like your high school stuff, like you didn't really have many tools either to make a different decision about your weight, because you were just starting to learn. You knew kind of the tool of sports, but you were just trying to learn this tool of like resistance training, but you didn't really have any tools around food or just general overall cardio. What did you say? Cardiac health? No, that's not right.
Cardiovascular health?
Cardiovascular health. Yeah.
Hmm.
So like, um, then you're leaving high school. You're kind of starting out on your own, thinking about those. What's my life as an adult going to look like? Kind of stuff, like we all do in that time period. So like, now where does your story go from high school with your weight?
From high school, it starts, especially when it comes to the fitness stuff, is that I kind of lifted weights every now and again, mostly just didn't. Well, actually, let me go even farther back. When I when I got out of high school is when I got a real job at a factory, and I was making good money as an 18-year-old kid who lives at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was flush with extra cash. And so I would eat out every single day. I remember for like probably a couple weeks, if not a month, I remember I would literally order like a Pizza Hut pizza every single day and pick it up on my way home from work. And I would smash that whole thing after eating way too much food for a physical labor job on my lunch break.
Now you can barely
Probably
eat
mostly.
pizza.
What?
Now you can barely eat pizza.
I can barely eat pizza, unfortunately. But I remember I would eat like pizza rolls with ranch, like all the time on my lunch breaks. And then I'd come home and get a pizza, and then I'd smash that. And usually I would get like the cinnamon stick breadstick things they have there too. So I was just eating all the time. And I'd get Taco Bell to the point where like they knew me and my order by name. And so yeah, I just had all this extra money, and so it was easy for me to spend a good 50-60% of that on food just for myself, because again, I love food and I had the means to do it. And so in the convenience factor of I don't have to make food, I can just go out and order it. I'm so glad there wasn't like DoorDash or Uber Eats then, because then I would have been real in the hole, because we just had it brought to my house. So that's kind of where it started there, and that's when I got like in high school I was big. I was 200 pounds. And again, as somebody who's 5'9", like they're usually like a normal range for me is like 155. And so I was 200 pounds by the time I was a freshman, which is like 15, 16 years old. Probably actually, I think it was like 14, 15 years old, which is pretty big for a short king like myself, or an average king. 5'9"
Yeah,
is
that's
the
average.
American average. That's right. Everything's built for people who are 5'9". Just know that in the world. But I forgot where I was going with that. What did I say?
Ordering food to your house and how convenient it was, and you were getting bigger in high school.
I was getting bigger in high school. So I was getting bigger in high school, and so by the time I was done, I was still doing sports somewhat, and I'd hurt my knee my freshman year and had to have like pretty major surgery on it, playing football, and just kind of like, and then I stopped playing sports a lot. So then I wasn't even moving much at all. I was doing the gym stuff a little bit with my brother. That was kind of the extent of my fitness, in any way. And then, so I by the time I graduated, I think I was like probably like 220, somewhere in there, 230. And then from there is when I got and then I had maybe I was like 220. And then I got my own money and could eat whatever I wanted. And so then I'd got myself back up to like 250. I think maybe close to 260, I think is kind of where I was at. And I was the best man at my brother's wedding, which was super awesome. And I remember like being really excited and like had a lot of fun, and like I like to do goofy dances, so I was doing all that stuff. And so there's a lot of photos taken, obviously. And I remember seeing a photo of me dancing with a couple of my friends. And I looked at myself and I was like, man, I was like just really big and swollen, and like didn't even really like recognize the fact that I had like a face, because there's just so much, extra fat around it. And I was like, man, I don't want to look like that on my wedding when I get married. And I'm like, hopefully I get married in the next couple of years. So I gotta get going. But I remember, like, I use this phrase like choose your heart a lot these days, because no matter what you do, it's hard. So whether you choose to, like, being obese is hard, because it's hard to not have energy. It's hard to feel like crap all the time. It's hard to, battle with anxiety and depression because you're not moving your body. You're getting zero endorphins in your head. And it's also really hard to work out and move your body and choose to not eat all these flavorful foods that you normally love and would normally go right to, because you're trying to get healthy. And so, I forget who you said it was. You said this to me years ago, and I really loved it. The idea of the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change in order for you to make a change.
Yeah, it's actually it's like an AA thing, but I heard it from Dr. Cloud and Henry. I just learned that the other day. I read it in Dr. Cloud's book. So,
yeah. But I really like
Dr. Henry Cloud. It's Dr. Henry Cloud, not Dr. Cloud and Henry. there's two doctors. Sorry. Anyway.
Either way, I really liked it, and I was like, that's so true, because that's really what it was for me. Because I saw that photo, and I was like, the pain of the idea of seeing myself. And I did not like the way I looked in that photos. In any of those photos, I knew I wasn't going to like it. And I was like, I don't want to feel that way when I'm married. I want to be able to look at these photos and be like, man, just so excited every single time, no matter how many times I look at it. I want to be like, man, I feel like I look good. I feel healthy. I'm excited to show people these photos, to send these photos and not feel like, like I look like junk or just be embarrassed by it. And I didn't want that. And it was just so, like, that pain was so much greater than the idea of, like, just going to keep doing what I want to do or what's comfortable is what I would say. And so that really is what kind of was I use the word catalyst a lot too, was my catalyst the first time I was working out, where I was like, all right, this is the thing we're moving. We're going to figure it out. And luckily during that time I had made a friend, because I was working in a youth group, and one of my small group co-leader, his name is Mitch West, big fan of this guy. But he was super into CrossFit at the time, and we had conversations off and on about it. And so like I kind of like learned a little bit about it. So basically, a lot of CrossFit is it's kind of crazy, and there's a lot of people think it's kind of culty, which it can be kind of culty. But the idea of it is really, I really latched onto it because, like I said, like I knew resistance training is what I enjoyed because I liked being strong. But I knew that I needed more. And I really liked the idea that CrossFit is more than just lifting weights. It's more than just running. It's movement. It's lifting. It's running. It's gymnastics. It's sports. It's all these different things. And so there's so much variety. It's not just like, I'm just going to go to the gym. I'm going to sit on this machine. I'm going to do 12 reps 12 sets, 12 reps, wait 3 minutes, 12 more reps, wait 3 minutes, putz around my phone, 12 more reps, and then I'm going to go to the next machine or hit some dumbbells or whatever it was. Like that part just drives me crazy about resistance training from a personal standpoint. Some people love it and I respect it. I just, it's so boring to me. And it's really hard to be motivated to go do something that you think is boring. And so I didn't like it. I really like CrossFit because I'm like, oh shoot, I can do all this in like 10 minutes and just feel like I want to die at the end of it. That sounds awesome. And so I loved it. And so I got super into that, and I did it by myself for a long time, like not at a CrossFit gym. I just did it like at the gym. Luckily, there's a gym in my area that had like this like functional area where you could actually like, it was just kind of like an open space where you could bring barbells in, and they had like bounce plates, like rubber plates, so you can like do all this stuff. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm gonna do this. And I talked with my friend a lot about it and like learned a lot from him, and he sent me some really good resources for like where to find good workouts and like how to do these movements. And it was super, like, he was a huge lifeline for me. And he wanted to work out with me all the time, which I thought was super cool. And so through that process, I would work out a lot, and especially when it comes to like the food aspect of it. So like I was working really hard because I would work out, I go to work, I'd come home from work, and I was working part-time at the time too, eventually. And so I would go to work, and then I'd come home, change, go to the gym, and then I would just do whatever I want the rest of the day. But a lot of it, I was just out working my bad diet for a long time. So I was losing weight because I was just working out a lot and doing, it was a lot, and building muscle. So that way, again, my metabolism, basal metabolic rate, that's what I'm looking for, was high. So like, just like if you're not doing it, if you lay down all day, that's your basal metabolic rate, is how much calories your body's going to burn. I'd gotten higher, so I was just burning more calories regardless. But I knew food kind of came into it a little bit back then, more so because out of necessity. So I started eating better because I learned that if I ate better, that my workouts felt better. I didn't feel like hot garbage or like I was, working out with a ball of lead in my stomach or, fire in my throat, whatever you want to say. And so like that made it a lot better. So that but a lot of times what I would do then is I would wait to eat crap until after I'd worked out. So like a lot of times I'd like starve myself essentially, and I'd maybe have like peanut butter. My go-to like pre-workout. So like when I got off work, I'd come home, eat like 2 slices of toast with peanut butter, Ezekiel bread. And then I'd have an apple, and I'd take that to the gym, and I would eat it on the way to gym. And that's what I would eat beforehand. And then I'd work out, and then I usually, again, because I had my own money, I would just go and buy something. And usually it was crap for a while there. Well, not crap, because I was like, I gotta be healthy. So it was better crap, but still crap. So it was like less Taco Bell than I normally get, but it was still, Taco Bell. And I love Taco Bell still. But eventually I would like start going to like Panera, and I would get like a salad and a soup. And I was like, this is bomb. I'm going to get this. So then I would do that a lot. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, all right, this is kind of expensive to eat at Panera every day because Panera is stupid expensive.
Yeah.
And so then I'd started buying my own like pre-made salad bags. And so I ate a lot of that and got really cut down a ton. I think I got myself back down to 185 at my lowest there. But again, the BMI doesn't take into account a lot of things. And so at that point, I would have called myself at the high end of normal weight. Based off the BMI, I would have been considered overweight. But the way I looked, and like, because I have big bones, so like you have the bigger bones you have, the more weight you have in bones. Like I was genuinely big boned.
You got that German build.
Got that German build.
It's just genetics.
Yeah, and also, again, I was working out a lot, so I had a lot more muscle than most people do. And so again, like your weight kind of goes up. So like I would give myself a hard time a lot, especially when we talk about mentality things. Is I constantly saw the little bits of chub that I had on my body. I had a little bit of in my belly that's just kind of because it's really stubborn. I had a little bit in my chest. Like if I could spot it somewhere, like even like just had like a little bit of a double chin, which is just normal. Like most people do that because this part of your body relaxes. And so like I could constantly see all these little bits, and so it's never really good enough. And like my friend and Mitchell and my other friend, her name's Patricia, she's like a big track person and soccer player. Like they were both like, you look great. Like you're fine. Like you can stop. Because I was constantly like, I gotta cut down. I gotta keep cutting. And they're like you're good, man. Like you look great. You're at a healthy weight. And I just had such a hard time, like believing that in myself. And like, because like again, I just saw what was left, and I assumed in my head that everybody else saw that. It wasn't until this time around where I'm trying to change that mindset and help other people change that mindset of, I see, what is it? I see what I've left. Everybody else sees what I've lost. And so trying to like give myself grace in that and say, I'm getting emotional about this, and say that, it's a big deal. And choose to view that. Choose to view it that way. Like, no, like you're good. Like, there's some days where I feel a little bloated. I'm like, oh man, like now people are going to think I'm gross and I'm fat. I'm like, no, they still see all the weight. Like I've lost 60 pounds thus far. I'm like, people see that. It's a noticeable amount of weight. And so, let's say, as I got to that point where I was finally in a good spot, that's when I met Annette, and we were dating off and on. No, not off and on. We were friends, and relationship was kind of rocky there for a little bit because I was a stubborn little boy. But eventually we got together and we were engaged, and I had stopped working out, and then eventually I had gotten to a CrossFit gym at some point in that journey there, and I was actually doing CrossFit. I had made a deal with the owner because CrossFit's very expensive, where I was doing it for like half price because I would like come in and help clean the gym like once a week, and so I was doing it for a while, and eventually I tried to go to school, and so then I was like, I can't afford to pay for school while I'm also trying to, so I chose school over it. So I stopped doing CrossFit, which means I pretty much stopped working out because I also was like, I'd rather just spend all my free time with the net. And so, then we got married, and it was awesome because I like look at the photos, even like now, I go look at the photos, I'm like, man, I'm so happy with the way I look, and like I'm excited to just see these photos and show them and share them. And so like that was huge. And then what I learned from that years later, which we can probably get into, was that I met that goal. This is the hard part about fitness, especially weight loss, is you meet the goal, and then if we don't change the goal, then we go back to what's comfortable. And so I got back to what was comfortable, and what was comfortable was eating and not moving. Like I said, my heart changed, and I didn't change my goal to make something else that's hard and in a way that's exciting to me. And so I went back to what was comfortable, especially because that was also during like COVID started. And so nothing was really open anyway. And so we just ate food and hung out and had a free pass to do nothing because that's what we were allowed to do.
Because the world is shut down.
And so then at some point over that course of a couple of years, I gained all of that weight back. So I was down. I went from like 160-ish to all the way down to 185, and then climbed my
260.
way straight back to that 255, 260 pounds weight again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's pause there and go back because there was a lot of things you said there in like transitions and decisions that I feel like are important to restate. And it's interesting because I feel like your fitness journey is in 3 parts thus far. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to. So I'd say this is like kind of part 2. And I feel like, first of all, you had a specific memory, like a specific decision point, which I think is really important for people to recognize. Like looking at the pictures at your brother's wedding, you're like, this is a decision point. I need to make it a change. So I think like helping people understand like what's your decision point and like celebrating that and being like, this is you before. I mean, just like we do in Jesus, like this was you before Christ and this is you after, like you're a new creation. We're going a different direction. But I think like a lot of people, your motivation was initially more cosmetic, which I think is where most people start because like that we do talk about. Like we do talk about how you look and what size jeans you can wear and like especially like in the 2000s and early 2010s and stuff like is still very much like super skinny, especially for women, like super skinny models and you got to look this certain way. And so I think like for a lot of Americans at least that's a more natural place that people start is looking in the mirror and saying I don't like what I see than even like I don't feel good. Like for some people they've gotten so bad like they are in a health crisis situation and they have to make changes from there. But I think for maybe the majority that are in a bad way with their weight, like it's usually more like I just don't like how I look and because they're getting older, they don't fit in things like they used to when they were a teenager and suddenly their metabolism has changed and how do they deal with that? But I really appreciated what you said as like that was a really good starting point, but it was not a holistic goal because then like even at the end and even sometimes now you still struggle with like the cosmetic piece of that like and your mindset now is so much more healthy around like the holistic health and doing it for reasons beyond that we'll get into in your next chapter of fitness. But like yeah, I think for a lot of us like it's just I don't like what I see. And I think knowing and celebrating like that decision point is good, but also knowing like that's not the place that we're gonna stop. Like we're not just gonna be upset with how we look because we have some weight. We're gonna find a bigger reason why. Because then yeah, like you shared, once you hit that goal, then you lost that motivation and you went back to what was comfortable. So and I really also what you shared about like Mitchell too, I think having somebody new in your life then like everything we do comes out of relationship and like having somebody that even is in your peripheral that you're not like you weren't pursuing CrossFit before but like he was passionate about it and sharing about what he was doing and just having people around us kind of show us that there's a different option. Like it may take us a long time to really realize like oh this person is kind of a guide and a resource for me in this area that I didn't think about. Like making sure you're in relationships with people that can it keeps reminding me of AA but like yeah being in relationships with people that are like they're gonna show me that um, there's more options for me and like there's like your brother was an example of resistance training. Mitchell was this option example of more like holistic health stuff and being able to jump in then with him and then finding then Trisha too as another support and having them being able to speak identity into you of saying like no man you're doing a great job, you look really good, like having those outside forces and not doing the fitness alone, I think is a big deal. And then like, yeah, just recognizing again, like you're collecting tools. Like before in high school, you just had these couple tools. Now you have a couple more with CrossFit, but still like you hadn't really gotten many tools around eating. So that's kind of still a problem. And then that kind of like reared its head again. So like, yeah, as I see it, I think it's just a reminder like there's grace in all the things. And like once you start seeing success in one area, like you can get discouraged in this other area, but like remind yourself like maybe I just don't have the right tools or people around me to help me understand this, and then being able to find those people and step into that. So those are just kind of some of my synopses of your different changes. But then going into round 3, what was different?
Round 3, part 3, as we will. That one was different. And to preface some of...
Okay, quick pause. If you're building something you care about, a ministry, a business, a dream, and your website, social media, or messaging just isn't showing people the heart behind it, that's what I help with at ClickChamp Campaigns. I run a digital marketing agency that helps faith-driven businesses tell better stories online through clear messaging, strategic websites, simple SEO, and one-on-one marketing coaching. Whether you need a full site redesign, help getting found on Google, or support setting up an email and content systems that don't burn you out, I've got you. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, you don't have to figure it all out alone. Head to clickchampcampaigns.com to book a free discovery call, and let's make your online presence work for you.
Well, I'll just go back. Round 3 kind of started with probably around 2021-ish, where I just started all of a sudden having like these really horrible like sickness going on. Something gastrointestinal. Still not entirely sure exactly what it was. But I was just like chronically sick. I was always like, I'd say I took at least 2-3 days a month off work because I was like waking up with like horrible like diarrhea, and I was vomiting, and I just felt like I felt horrendous. And so I would take time off, and like that job I was doing, like it wasn't like a hard job. It was just like I hated it because it was like an in-between time. So I was working in like youth ministry before that. And then I'd taken this new job in sales, and I hated that. And it was also like a receptionist type thing, and so I was just like constantly solving everybody else's problems and while trying to do mine, and I just didn't like it. And I was chained to my desk all the time. It's a whole thing, but I really hated that job, and it was really stressful for me. And also like we'd gone through large life transitions. Like I was married, and I was like so used to being single. Like I was single my whole life up until I met Annette, and I really liked being single. To the point where I was surprised that I got married. And so, but so like a lot of big transitions, and we moved into a house, and it was a lot of big transitions, and this job was another big transition because all of a sudden I was doing something because I needed a paycheck, more so because I was doing something I was passionate about. And so I was just chronically stressed. And I think that was a big part of a lot of the health issues I was having, was like my body was just like so anxious about going to work and what the workday is going to look like. That I would wake up immediately with like a very physical response to it. And it's like, that was horrendous. And so I go to the doctor. That's why I don't think, like, I went to doctors multiple times, and like they never really had like a solid, like, this is what this is, which is why I think a lot of it is just like stress induced, like, I don't want to say Crohn's, because I know there are people who have Crohn's that it's horrendous for them. And they never officially said it was Crohn's. They said it was like something, I don't know. Anyway, but I was sick a lot. My bowels and intestines were always horrible, and like brain fog was a real deal. And I just felt like crap all the time. And it just like, when I changed jobs, and I was working at an after school program job, and I really liked that again because I was working with teens again, which is what I did in ministry. That was really helpful in a lot of ways, because that, like, all of a sudden I wasn't sick as often, because I was doing something I really liked, and it wasn't as stressful. And so like that was really life-giving, but I still felt like crap all the time. And I was so tired of feeling like crap. And I did that for a couple of years. And Annette through her work, they had offered, like, there's a, oh shoot, I can't remember what her title is. Nutrition specialist and wellness coach. Her name is Crystal Weatherton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Weatherton.
Yeah, Crystal.
We love her too. Where all the staff and their spouses were able to have like one-on-one or one-on-two, if you will, coaching sessions with her for like over the course of like 6 months. Like it was like once a week for like 6 months, so it was really helpful. And we spent a lot of our time was coaching me because I was the one that was having a lot of issues. She tried really hard to help me get my gut health back in order, and like again, I was pushing 260 pounds again, and like I knew this whole time that I wanted to be in shape again, but I just didn't know the food part of it was so hard because I didn't fully understand it. And so she helped really teach us a lot of fundamental things about food and the way we view it, and especially like mindset wise of like, where does this feeling come from when you come to these foods that you crave and love, even the ones that you know are destructive, like dairy. All of a sudden I used to be able to eat dairy all the time. I turned 22, 23, all of a sudden I couldn't have it anymore, and that was hard. And so like really helped walk us through that a lot, and I really appreciate her just so much for it, because that also helped kind of kickstart where I am like now. So like that was the beginning of 2023, I want to say, and was super transformative in just the way that I viewed food, and also helped me really understand, because I really liked learning about it. I like to learn about the different aspects of food and like what causes what, and how to learn how to like limit what you did, because this is what I was going to go back to, was when I was during part 2 of my fitness journey. I didn't say this before, but I would do a lot of just like food experiments just for fun. So I would spend like 2-3 weeks doing a different like fad diet. And it started with doing a Daniel fast, not as an experiment, just as like a spiritual fast to like. And if you don't know anything about Daniel fast, it's essentially you're eating only things that are actually like from the earth. So like unleavened bread, we're talking vegetables, fruits, and that's pretty much it. And I did that, and it's 21 days. And I did that, and it was so amazing. I just felt so good, and it was a fun challenge to do. And by the end of it, I was so ready to be done doing it. But it was amazing how much better I felt because I was eating good stuff. And so I did that, and it was a lot of fun. And my friend Trisha made me a bunch of cookies that I love. I still love cookies, but back then I loved cookies. And so she made me this whole big dish, and I like smashed. I think it was like 2 dozen. I ate all 2 dozen in one day, which is a lot of fun. Junk. But anyway, so I did that, and then eventually I was like, you know what? I'd like to spend 2 weeks being paleo. Spend a couple weeks doing, oh shoot, what are some of the ones I did?
Vegan, vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
I think you did carnivore ones.
I did carnivore once. I did like Whole Foods, all these things. None of them ever really stuck. But I just thought it was fun to like learn about these different things or try these different things. And so working with Crystal was really fun, because then I was actually able to kind of like learn like why these things affected my body in different ways. And like why some of them like work better than others. Like I really learned that being vegetarian, not that bad. You just don't eat meat. It's basically, you just can't have meat or eggs, but you can have like anything else. Vegan, people who are vegan, I'm sorry, but it is trash, and it is trash for your body because there's so many supplements that you lose when not having any type of animal product in your food. Also, it's just bad. It's just, not all vegetables are good, or taste good, to be fair. And so, where was I going with that? So I learned a lot about this stuff. And so I had a lot of fun learning about food and how it affects my body and affects my attitude, affects my mood, affects my mental clarity, especially like prebiotics and probiotics. And like when you get proper nutrition in your body, like it's like food is medicine. Like you can fuel yourself in a way that like all of a sudden like my brain fog was gone. My gut health issues were decreasing at a rapid rate. Like all of a sudden I just felt good. I felt like energy all of a sudden. And I was like, man, like this feels good. This is what I want. I don't care as much about losing weight. I want to lose weight, but I cared more about just like, I was tired of feeling like junk all the time. I'm tired of like feeling like I was giving my seconds to everybody because I was so tired and I was exhausted. After like I'd wake up exhausted and like not sleepy tired was what I kind of, because I also like that's a thing too where and that was constantly like, how you feeling? And I'd be like, I'm tired, and she'd be like, that's the least helpful thing you've ever said to me, because what does that mean?
I didn't say
She didn't say that, but that's what I heard. But it's true because it wasn't helpful. It wasn't because I wasn't sleepy tired. Because she'd be like, "Do you want to take a nap?" And I'd be like, "No." It's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "I don't know. I want to eat something, I guess." But really, I was just like, it was just fatigued and gross, and just had no energy for life. And so I wanted to fix that.
Right.
And so like doing the food stuff with Crystal really helped a lot with that. And I was like, man, this feels good. And so learning more about that was really exciting for me. And then also like to the point where I was like, and like at this point I'd been working with youth and teenagers specifically for like 7 or 8 years. And I really didn't see myself moving up at all, like professionally in that way, because I was like, this is kind of as high as I want to go. And that's really where, especially a few years ago, that's where I was like constantly like, what's the next professional goal? Where am I moving to? What am I going towards? And I realized I'm like, like maybe like, because I would always say the only thing I'm passionate about in life are people, which is true. I really love people. I love to work with people. I love to support people. I love to hang out with people. But I was constantly, so I was like, this is what I can do in a way, professionally, in a way that I won't hate. That's why I was like, maybe I could do sales because I like people and I work with people in sales. But I'm like, I hate sales because it felt phony and gross, and I didn't like it. It wasn't like an authentic way of interacting with people, and I really valued that. And so, and during this time, I'd gone through some like life coaching too. So I was like, maybe I could do that, and like that's where one of my friends, Jay, who was doing life coaching with, he had me write down, or he's the one that helped me understand that like, or we were talking about this weight loss stuff and how like I wanted to lose weight again and I didn't know how to do it. And he was like, well, let's talk about your weight loss journey the first time. And I was like, okay. So then I shared like, my catalyst story, my pictures, my goal of losing weight, not wanting to look like that in my wedding photos. And then he's like, all right, so like you did this, you worked really hard, you got married, and then what? And I was like, I met my goal. He's like, yeah, but then what happened? And I was like, nothing. He's like, yeah, you didn't change your goal. You met the goal. Great job. Had a boy, but you didn't change it. So like naturally, what do you expect to happen? Like you just go back to something that's comfortable. And I was like, oh shoot, that is so true. And so I was like, man, I bet so many people wrestle with that. Where like you do it, and I was like, and then I saw like in my life, like this like repetition of like, yeah, you're right. There's so many things where like I meet a goal and then I just like go to whatever's comfortable, because like if I don't have a goal, then there's no reason for me to be uncomfortable. And so I was like, oh shoot, like that's so helpful. So he's like, what you need to do is either have a long-term goals that are constantly changing and evolving, or you need to have a more open-ended goal. Like that's not like a SMART goal. If you do SMART goal things, it's not one of those. It's something that is like, what do you want? So that's where I was learning about like, I just want to, because this was like kind of the same time I was doing stuff with Crystal, which is also essentially life coaching. Would recommend. But I was learning, I was like, oh, like I just want to feel good. I just want to have energy. I want to be able to like play with my kids. Like, and then and then I'm having a child now. But even then, I was like, I knew we were wanting to have kids, and we've been trying to have kids. And I was like, yeah, I want to have energy. I want to be the dad who plays with his kids. Who's not the dad who sits on the bench on his phone, passively watching his kid have fun. Instead, I want to be the dad who's running around the playground with my child. The one who's constantly, when the kid says, do you want to play? I'm going to say yes. No, not right now. I'm too tired. Like that's because I want to have that kind of energy. And so like that was a really important moment for me because I was like, there's more to health and wellness than just being strong, being fast, and not eating like crap. And so there's a better goal to reach. And I was like, man, this feels good. And so I learned about a lot about food. And then I was like, well, I already have this wealth of knowledge of movement and lifting and running and again, and even in this, that's what the beautiful thing about CrossFit is like there's so many different aspects of or different ways of movement that's all kind of in one like sport. But even during that in part 2, like I was having fun experimenting with stuff. So like I would do a lot of running because I had friends with Trisha who's super into running. And so I would do a lot of run workouts with her because she'd ask me and I'd be like, sure, yeah, let's do it. And I learned that I really kind of liked running, but also like I enjoyed the gymnastics aspect of CrossFit. I enjoyed just all these different things and like flexibility and mobility training. And so like being able to like have your body move well was really fascinating to me. And I really liked learning about all these things. And so, but all of this was accumulating to the point where I was accumulating right before I was at that point in my career of working with youth where I was like, I feel like I'm ready for something new. But I didn't know what that was. And so that's what I learned. I'm like, there's 2 things I really love learning about. I love people and I love fitness. And I really like learning about fitness. Because I'm not an academic guy at all. So there's very few things I enjoy spending time learning about. And like health and fitness and nutrition were one of those things that I really liked. And so I was like, oh, like maybe like, so for a while there, I was like, maybe I'll just do what Crystal does and try to be a nutrition specialist and coach through there. But then I was like, well, one, getting nutrition, like being a certified nutritionist is kind of hard and takes a lot of time to learn and be able to do or like get certification through. But also like I really liked movement. I really was like, I'll do that, but I want to have like focus on like helping people move. And then I was like, oh, what about like just like being maybe a net set it somehow I got to the point of like personal training. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like something I would like to do. And so I was looking at that. I'm like, yeah, because I'm like, this I already have a wealth of knowledge on all this stuff, movement and lifting and running and like speed, agility, quickness training. And so like, I just didn't have like a formal, education on it. And so I was like, I'm able to just go through this process. And so the beginning of 2024, I started doing that. Went through that process of getting, credentialized and as a certified personal trainer, which was a lot of fun because it was, again, I was learning about stuff I was excited about. But also none of it was like particularly like new. Some of it was like, whoa, this is so cool. But like, as far as like the movement and like fitness side of it was stuff that I already knew. The science of it was stuff that was new and exciting to learn about. So that stuff was exciting. Yeah. And from there, like, that's where like I was just learning. And like, I also hate sitting and reading. I mean, a lot of it, I was like almost exclusively just sitting and reading. And so I hated doing that. So I would, I learned that there's like a, accessibility feature where you could read you the page. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy cool. So I would literally just walk around sitting apnea for hours every day, just listening and consuming the information that way. And it was amazing. And then I'd come home, and usually by that point, after a couple hours, like there's some kind of quiz or something I had to take. And so I'd come in, I'd take the quiz, I'd do well on it, and then I move on to the next one the next day. And so like I just started moving my body. And I knew I wanted to work out, but I didn't really want to work out. And so I learned that like I could go for a walk. I could at least do that. I can at least try to hit my 10,000 steps a day. And so that's kind of where that started. I was like, I'm just going to get my 10,000 steps. And I learned, for a while I would go for a walk without listening to anything. And that's when all of a sudden I learned, and then I was mad because I'm like, I feel like I'm spending all this time just sitting down, when I could be like trying to work out and get strong and buff. And doing CrossFit stuff again, because that's what I did the first time. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do again. And so I was like, I was so mad. Then I was never motivated to actually like do a lot of lifting because I was sitting down for forever. And so I was like, whatever, I'll just like go for a walk and then I'll come back, sit down, try to read, and like just struggle through it. And then eventually, that's when I learned about the accessibility feature. And I was like, oh shoot, like I can just combine these things. That'll save me so much time. And then eventually I was like, I'll just do my short walk. And then eventually it turned into a longer walk. And I found this bigger route. And then I found a bigger route that would take me like 2-3 hours to complete. And all of a sudden I was learning so much more, so much faster. And I was moving the whole time. And that was really helpful and exciting. And so all of a sudden I was going from like doing nothing to doing a lot in a day. And so it started with walking, this as far as the fitness side. And during this whole process too, I was still continuing to learn about food and trying to figure out how I can systematically and slowly kind of start to change the way I eat. But it wasn't anything massive or drastic. And that was started in April of last year. And so from April till June, or probably February to June is when I was working through the credentialing. But the walking and that stuff started happening when it was warmer out. So like April to June was when I was going through the process of credentialing for my certification in personal training. And during that process is when I was I forget where I was going with this already. Where I was going through this, and from there I'd lost about 10, 15 pounds just because I was just moving my body more, which was amazing. Because I say, especially like the bigger you are, the easier it is to lose weight fast. Because there's just so much more weight to be lost that your body's going to burn through that stuff so fast. And so that's kind of where I was. I was like, all I had to do was hit my 10,000 steps, and then I'd be good. And so suddenly I was moving my body more. I wasn't consuming too much less than I was, but because I was consuming less, or because I was burning more, again, I was just kind of outworking my bad diet in a sense. But I was making some changes that were like a little bit easier and less. Like I was starting to stop because I would eat massive meals because I just loved food. And so I started eating less, slightly less, and I was moving more. And eventually that turned into like, maybe I'll just try, because I would start walking because I was like, maybe I'll just walk and then I'll be more motivated. Because I learned that if I walk, then I'm more motivated to work out. Because all of a sudden, get the body moving a little bit. It gets me more energized and more motivated to work out. And then I'd come back and I'd do a little workout. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, I kind of feel like running. Because I was walking, I was like, I feel like I could run some of this. And so then eventually I found this app that I had been trying for years, off and on, called the Couch to 10K runner app. I highly recommend it if you're trying to get into running. Where it would literally have you would run for 60 seconds and you would walk for 2 minutes, and you would run for 60 seconds and you'd walk for 2 minutes, and you do that like 5 or 6 times total. That was the whole workout for the day. And I was like, oh, I could do that. 60 seconds isn't that bad. And all you have to do it so fast. Like there's no set amount of distance I have to cover. I just do it. And so I started doing that, and I would do that every couple days when I was motivated to do it. And I would still try to do, little CrossFit workouts. Pretty much all I had were dumbbells, so I wasn't doing anything too extensive there. But I was doing that a lot. I was like, oh man. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, okay, like maybe I'll try. And I was learning, and then in June at the end of June is when I finished my credentialing for personal training. So that's when I was full on certified personal trainer. And I learned a lot about, it's called SAQ training. So SAQ training. So speed, agility, and quickness training. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll try to like be more of like an athlete. Cause I missed being like an athlete from school. And I was like, maybe because that sounded more interesting to me than CrossFit did. Mm-hmm. And because it's easier to do with zero gym membership, zero equipment. Like you can do that. And it also, during this time, so, I was just like playing around with adding different things. So I was like running a little bit. I was still doing some lifting. I was doing a little bit of like some sprints here and there. I found my old jump rope. So I was doing that, and I was having fun with that for a while. And I built out this little schedule every day where like Monday I would I don't remember. Probably Monday was like, I'm going to lift weights on Monday. Tuesday, this is also during the summer, so I'm like, I'm going to mow the yard. And that was my workout for the day. And then Tuesday, and I would go for a walk. I'd go for a walk and I'd mow the yard. And that would be my workout for the day. And then Wednesday, I learned about plyometrics, so like being able to jump higher and jump farther. I was like, sounds cool. Let's do that. So I was doing plyometrics on Wednesday, and Thursday I would run, and Friday I would do sack training. So I was like, go to this field near my house, and I would be doing all kinds of different drills and sprinting at different lengths. And I was having a lot of fun with that. And the more I did that, the more I was like, especially with the running, the farther I got in the progression of the running, the more I really found I really liked it. I was like, this is actually like a lot of fun. And so I was like, maybe I'll just like, and like some of the other things I wasn't as interested in these days. And so I was like, maybe I'll cut out, like my resistance training, my CrossFit style workouts that I was doing. I was like, I'll just take those out because I'm not super interested in that. And so I'll just add another run day there. And then I got to that point and I was doing that for a while. And eventually I was like, you know what? I think I just want to run more. And just like over the course of a couple months, just like slowly, like almost all the other ones kind of trickled off, and it was just running every day. And like 7 days a week. I just loved it. And last year, our friend Janae had ran the Chicago Marathon, and I was like, that's super cool. Like, what a crazy feat she did, like physically, like mentally, like just like, and I was like learning about that. And my mom had gotten really into running and had lost a lot of weight doing that too. And she was also running marathons. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, she can do this. Like, Janae's doing it. I'm like, and it's always been kind of on the back of my mind of like, I'd like to run a marathon someday. It sounds like a cool bucket list thing. And so I was like, maybe I'll just like, and I'm like running right now. Maybe I'll just try to do that and train for that, especially after I finish my like 10K app. And sure enough, I was like, all right, let's do it. Full on marathon. I was like, you know what? I'll slap an ultra marathon on there too. And so I've been doing that. But like, what's fun is like to talk about all the goals is my goal is always to feel good. And the more I move, the more I run, the better I feel mentally, because there's more endorphins that are being released in my head, the happy drugs, the happy hormones in your head that you're releasing. And so all of a sudden, like my anxiety level is like gone. Depression's gone, like all of that. I just feel good all the time. And like, I would say this, like Annette and I, when I was doing the first time around, sorry, say it again.
I was just saying, I was agreeing. It's a huge change, and it's obvious to me as your wife that there's a significant change in your mental health, especially.
Yeah. And the first time around, or I guess not first time, the second time, part two, I was also felt like this. I felt really good. Felt like I would say all the time that it was the best time of my life. And I would constantly like look back to this during like the last few years of like, that was the best time of my life. Like, I love being married to you. But like, as far as like how I felt overall, like that was the best. And so now I can just confidently say like, I feel like this now is the best time of my life. And so, and a lot of that is due to working out and moving, but also working with people and helping other people experience it too. So yeah, that's kind of the end of, or not the end, but it's the ongoing of part 3 is right now I'm really working on food, and now I've lost 60 pounds again. And still trying to goal for another. I think I'd like to be down to 175 in general. But for a while, like I've been working really hard to get there as fast as I can. And so I lost most of that weight, which is why I said that, from like June or July to, and even then probably more like August to December. I went from like 240 to like 210. So I lost like 30 pounds, which is a significant amount of weight to lose. And I didn't do it in a super sustainable way, so I wouldn't fully recommend it. But I just wanted to see the results. So I was doing basically crash dieting. So ChatGPT helped me. I was like, hey, if I was on a wrestling team and I was trying to make weight and I wanted to be in this new weight division, what should I do? And just like try to have it make me a plan. Because I knew what to do because I had, certified personal training stuff. But I knew that it would help me have a better goal. So like, again, more tools in the tool belt. And so now now I'm down to 195. So I've lost another like 20 some pounds in the last few months. But now I'm at the point where I'm done trying to do it fast because I feel like I'm at a point physically. Well, one, it's nice to have less weight because when I'm running, then I have less weight I have to carry around and bounce around too. So there's less, energy loss. But now I'm at the point where I'd like to do it a little more sustainably. And like this whole time too, I'm continuing to try to figure out how to eat like a normal, quote unquote, normal person,
Mm-hmm.
because I've only ever done extreme dieting. I've only ever done like essentially intermittent fasting, where like I'll really just have one massive meal a day, which like that stuff works. And like calorie counting is a big deal for me now, which like you don't ever know how much you overeat until you're tracking it. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I eat way more than I'm burning because you don't know how much you do it. Especially like we talked about at the beginning, where sugar is in everything. Like it's horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
How many calories everything is. And I forgot where I was going with that again, but so that's kind of where we're at. And now I'm at the point, yeah, we're trying to learn how to do it sustainably. And like, I'm going to eat
Mm-hmm.
multiple meals a day. They're just not going to be massive meals. It's going to be like normal serving sizes. And
Mm-hmm.
like, if I get a pizza, this is another, like, I'm talking about breaking mindsets all the time, especially around food. It's like this mindset I have with pizza. Well, yeah, with pizza is I love pizza. And like I said, I used to eat a whole pizza every day. And so anytime I get a pizza, my brain immediately is like, I'm going to eat this whole large pizza by myself. And like, I'm trying to get myself to the point where like, whether or not I enjoyed the whole pizza. So like, even if I got halfway through the pizza and I'm like, I'm good, I would still eat the rest of the pizza, because like you eat the whole pizza. That's what you do when you buy pizza, Micah. And so I have to break this mindset of like, I bought this pizza and I don't have to eat it all.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm still hungry, and like there are some days where I'll buy a pizza, like yesterday we bought pizza, because even if you're losing weight, you can still eat whatever you want. So calorie tracking is important.
Mm-hmm.
But and there's 8 slices. I ate 7 out of 8 slices, because I was still hungry. Except then I got to that seventh slice, I was like, this was it. This was the limit. And so I said, I'll just save this last one, which 2 years ago I would have really struggled, both as through that breaking that mindset, but also like OCD, if you will, of like, there's one more. You can finish that last bite,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And so like being able to say like, it's okay that there's food left in my plate. It's okay that I didn't eat all 8 slices. It's okay that like I'm full, like, or I'm satiated. I'm not even full. I'm like, I don't feel like I need to eat food. And like, that's okay, which is
Mm-hmm.
a really hard one for me. And being able to continually, it's still a long process. Like it's still going to be a while before I feel like me am at a point where I have a healthy relationship with food. But that's something that I value in myself, and it's something that especially I value as a dad, that I want my kids to have healthy relationships with food and with movement and with sleep. That's a whole other thing I didn't even talk about. Is a lot of it was with sleep and learning how beneficial all that is,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably really my biggest catalyst this time around. But yeah, so like just constantly trying to learn and change and help other people do it too is a big part of who I am right now.
Yeah. That's awesome, babe. I'm so proud of you. Truly. I know like it can be hard for people to hear these stories and like see somebody on the other side of it and be like, okay, yeah, well, but now you're down 60 pounds and you feel good, you know. But like as the person who's married to you and has watched you go through all these different iterations, like it's it's a lot of work, but it's worth the work and you're putting the work in and it's paying off and you're continually evaluating like how to grow more and yeah, your mental health has been so much better and like you do have so much more capacity to love me well and take care of our family and all of these different things. So like I guess my encouragement too is like if you hear the story and you're discouraged because you're not at the healthy spot right now, like it's worth the work. Like you said, choose your hard. You got to keep doing it every day and choosing that hard. So, I want to end with our question. I'm going to try to end with this question every time of like, kind of like, what is Jesus doing in your life? But since we're sharing this story today, like, what's one thing that Jesus taught you through this that stands out that you would want to share with people?
It's a great question. One thing Jesus taught me in this process. Let's see. Probably that I want to word this. A big part of when I lost it the first time, I had a hard time believing I could do it because I'd never done that before. So I guess in this instance would be part 2 if we're going a longer story, where I lost all this weight and I was like, it's crazy that I was able to do that. And it was hard. But it was hard. It was when I gained it back. And so trying to break that, the mentality or that stronghold even in my life that says you can't do it again. Like that, like that was my one shot and I missed it or I gave it up or whatever you want to say. And so just that idea that you can do it again and you can try it again.
Mm. Yeah.
And that it's not always going to look the same. And I feel like that's one thing I'm learning a lot. Is that we're constantly used by God, constantly used by Him, and He wants to continue to use us. And the way He used you, the way He used you once isn't always the way He's going to use you again. And the way He's going to move in you once isn't the way He's going to move in you again.
Yeah, that's true.
Necessarily. And so that's been really important and really helpful to me, to learn that that He's there and He wants to encourage me and He wants to help me, and that He knows I can do it.
Amen.
Amen.
That's really good, babe. Love, love, love you. Thanks for sharing your story. Love, love, love. Hope that is an encouragement to people. And also, yes, Micah is around and available if, like, you heard how important having people in his story was. If you need someone who's a guide who can help you get these tools to make changes, that's obviously something Micah shared that he's really passionate about now. So, like, as he's growing, he would love to help you grow too. And so you can check out his stuff, ridenourfitness.com. Set up a little meeting to see if this is a good fit for you to do some coaching and get started feeling better and talking through all these different catalysts for change. I think that's such a huge part of the whole thing. And then getting the tools just makes it easier along the way. Okay, love you, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us today. If this conversation encouraged you, would you do us a favor? Share it with a friend, leave a quick review, or shoot us an email at that'swhatithoughtpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any ideas of things you want to hear us talk about, or just comments to share, things that encouraged you, we'd love to hear them. Talk soon.